Unable to get to my lightbox this week, I have turned to the good old method of using the window. This being a vignette double page spread, this is what the whole page will look like. But vignettes are a self-contained little image that you can put wherever you want really, but they quite often go at the top of the page or at the bottom of the page underneath some text. But here, as a picture book, I'm going to be using 4 that show the sorts of things that these two like to do. And I started off, the reason that layout paper is so useful is when I did my original layout, it was kind of a bit rough, and I redid the drawings. So I still get the idea of what the layout is, but anything I wasn't 100% pleased with, I just redid the drawing. And as you can see, I've got some text up there. Now that I've traced it through and I've got it in pencil on my Daler Rowney Aquafine paper, this is watercolour paper, I'm going to start inking it. And one of the reasons why it's quite useful to do vignettes rather than a whole page is if I do these 3 beautifully and then mess this one up, I'm just going to cut round and photograph these in separately. So they're going to be separate entities anyway. I could do them on 4 different pieces of paper, but I'm going to do them on 1. See how we go. Right. Fudenosuke, Tombow brush pen. This is a hard tipped one. It's the blue colour outside instead of the black, but the ink is black. This is the second spread in my new book, Emily Angel. It's good to chop up your layout designs a little bit, so you might mostly have, say, double page spreads, but have a vignette or a single page image for a change. But just be careful not to make every page different. You want to aim for a cohesive look that has the odd contrast. They're in a sand pit, so we've got to have sandcastle and a shell. I'm not going to draw the hair because she's got such fine fluff. I'm going to do it like I did the other spread. And she has got a little blue top on. I've got reference material to remind me of what she's wearing, because sometimes it can go for a couple of weeks between drawing something and then you forget exactly. You don't get that continuity. You forget what they're wearing or doing or what their hair looks like on that day or something like that. So it's really important to have that reference material. Some sand, and then she's got pyjamas on, so with this little sort of broderie anglaise trim, and of course her wings. That's the first drawing done. I'm going to do the other 3 now. I've completed all the drawings, however there was one that I redid, and it was the one of them running, so hopefully you can see that. I did not like the little girl's eyes. They just looked a bit weird to me, so I redid it, and I think that's a lot better. So that means the next job is to erase all those little pencil lines very carefully once it's dried properly, and then start some colouring. I'm going to start with the skin tones. So I'm just dropping in a little bit of water onto the areas that are skin. And the reason that I'm doing the skin tone first is because I want the hair to lay over the top of it on both characters. Okay, so that's just water. Now for a little bit of colour. So the little girl has got a much pinker face, pinker skin tone. I'm just going above the hairline as well, because then the hair can cover it. So that's a mixture of crimson and yellow ochre. So for the angel, for Emily, I'm going to use a little bit more yellow, adding a little bit of cadmium to that colour. And I'm going to do all of them at the same time, so that all 4 on this page have got the same tones. Let's put some water on that. Same tones and colourings. If I've got too much paint on my brush, I just dab it on the kitchen paper that's to the side, just to take a bit of that pigment off. So that's the first stage done. I've done the skin tones, and I think most of the rest of it is going to be done in my Inktense pencils. So I'm going to leave that to dry properly and then crack on with that. This story came to me in a strange way, as many stories do. Perhaps you've had a similar experience when you're washing up or you're in the shower and suddenly something pings into your head. So here's the strange story of how Emily Angel came about. Back in 2019, I was going through a really rough patch. It just seemed that all things collided at once, and it was quite hard to cope. So as part of my journey away from burnout, I took up meditation. I have been sort of meditating for years because I took up yoga when I was 21, so I kind of got the gist, but I'd never really seriously looked into it. Anyway, I started with the Headspace app, and I did that for a whole year. I found it really helpful, especially to start with, because there are some really short sessions, even just a minute or 2, so it wasn't overwhelming. At some point I discovered I could meditate for much longer, and now, almost 7 years after I started, I have meditated every day without fail. Apart from putting my head back together, it has also brought me a story. One day while I was lying down, eyes covered, listening to a guided meditation, there was a part in it where the person stopped talking and let you just sort of float in contemplation or prayer perhaps. And during that time, the story of Emily Angel appeared as 12 double-page spreads in my mind's eye. Now, I know this sounds crackers and very far-fetched, but I really can't find another way of describing it other than it was a bit like having a download. Maybe it was already in my mind and it just was formulating in a way that I could understand and remember. Or maybe it was God or the angels. Who knows? Anyway, when I came out of meditation, I wrote the whole thing down in thumbnail spread form so I didn't forget it. And here we are, some years later, making it into being. It does sometimes take a little while to get from an idea to making it into a final piece of work. And that's actually usually quite good, I find, because in that time you can learn more and hone your skills before you commit it to paper. If you fancy being helpful to other children's book enthusiasts, subscribing to the channel will help put it in front of them on their YouTube feed. And don't forget to give the vid a thumbs up and leave me a comment. I always read all of them. So to this story. It's written in first person from the viewpoint of the little girl, as yet still unnamed. She has a friend who no one else can see, Emily Angel. That is, no one else can see her except her Gran. They love to play games together, and Gran often reads them both a story. But later Gran goes to hospital and doesn't come home again, and Emily Angel helps the little girl come to terms with her loss. Far from being a sad story, it's actually one of hope. It's quite a niche story. It's not something that I will be taking around to schools or libraries. It's really specific for children who are going through loss, but I am hopeful that it might be of use to some families. My idea is to donate some copies to our hospice, who have been so magnificently helpful to my husband and our family, and my dog Maisie, who absolutely loves going there because she always gets the dog biscuit from the nurses. Shout out to the Earl Mountbatten Hospice on the Isle of Wight. On to the next spread for next week. I do hope you can join me then. Nanu nanu.